Well, it took me 10 years, you guys, but my video game is finally finished. Oh, this is amazing. Finally. It's called, drumroll please, Superb Barrio Siblings! You play as two Spanish electricians traveling through the Truffle Empire to rescue Queen Nectarine from the evil clutches of King Trouser. Oh yeah, an evil pants creature. Any similarities to other game franchises are purely coincidental, I swear. And it is going up on Game Jolt right now. Internet, welcome to Game Theory, where, let's face it, the world just wasn't ready for King Trouser. Truly, he was a video game villain before his time. You know, when you really stop to think about it, the internet's a fascinating place. We're a culture of memes and remixes, taking old ideas and making them new again. When Nintendo revealed the Alola Executor, the internet lit up, photoshopping its awkwardly long neck onto everything from Mario's flagpole to Kylo Ren's lightsaber. We're the land of the Rickroll, and the more recent incarnation, the John Cena blast. For crying out loud, a single frame from the old animated Arthur series is one of the hottest memes right now. Let me say that again. A family-friendly kids show airing on a publicly funded television station about a nerdy aardvark is now a meme about wanting to smack somebody up.
Welcome! Punch!
That said, when the internet chooses to memify something, remix it, do fan art around it, auto-tune it, whatever, it's like a badge of honor, a seal of approval. You've struck a chord with people. And in gaming, one version of that is the fan game. Before the interwebs, there was never a good place for people to quickly and easily share their games with others. But with the advent of sites like Game Jolt, services like Steam Greenlight, and game creation tools like RPG Maker, producing your own games and sharing them with others is easier than ever before. From the early days of fan-created hacks like Kaizo Mario to the more recent explosion of FNAF and Undertale spin-offs, fans inspired by their favorite games are now empowered to learn game design by making their own tributes and offshoots. Heck, Undertale itself has its origins as a fan game of Earthbound, and personally, I love it. Over on GT Live, we've been playing them all because a lot of these games are great, and the love that the creators have for the franchises is obvious from the opening seconds. Well, to me, at least, it's obvious. To the original creators of the games, maybe not so much. You see, just recently we've seen some major fan projects released. A fan-made Pokemon game called Pokémon Uranium blew up the internet with well over 1 million downloads in the first 9 days before Nintendo struck it down. To put that in perspective, numbers like that would put it in the top 40 Nintendo 3DS games of all time. And that's in just a week. Luckily, I was one of those first million, and it's another game I'm playing on GT Live. Banned Pokemon game. Similarly, a fan recreation of Metroid 2 called AM2R, or another Metroid 2 remake, was literally gone overnight. Man, Nintendo lawyers have been busy. And it's not like the creators of these games are trying to make money or put these things out carelessly. Pokemon Uranium literally took 9 years in development and cost nothing to download. So then why are these busy ceasing and desisting when all the rest of the FNAF clones and spin-offs like Five Nights at Candy's, Those Nights at Rachel's, The Joy of Creation, or the Undertale-inspired games like Overtale and Mothertale allowed to stay up? Is it just because their creators are cooler? Because they're indie? Or is there something else at work? When is a fan game truly a fan game? When is it safe? After digging through decades worth of court cases, I was shocked to learn that the answer to that very question has changed in some frightening ways recently. Ways that could permanently change the face of gaming and online fan culture. Now that gaming on YouTube has gotten so big, all the cool kids are talking about copyright and fair use. Everybody seems to give out advice about fair use these days, like they're Miss Cleo giving out dating advice in 1998. For 50 cents a minute, of course. But this issue goes way farther back than fan games on YouTube. It goes back all the way to Pong. That's right, there was a copyright case over a game literally made of 2 lines and a dot back in 1976. But that one mostly had to do with the gaming hardware. When it comes to deciding what content you can copyright within the game, that was largely decided by 2 really famous cases: Asteroids versus Meteors and Street Fighter versus Fighter's History. Now, if a game developer claims that someone has copied their game, the court does what's called an extrinsic analysis of each game. And it's literally this: they go through each game and make a list of what parts of the game are the same and which ones are different. Seriously. This is the mind-blowing legal authority of the United States here, people. It is literally a spot the difference puzzle from 3rd grade. Let's see, this Luigi has a black button. This Lonk is wearing a yellow tunic. This Mario is slightly less sociopathic. So now I'm gonna put you in the shoes of the judges and have us all play a little game I like to call Is It Copyright Infringement? I show you 2 games, you tell me if one is infringing on the other.
The play-at-home version will be released to a Toys R Us near you in the coming days.
Round 1, Asteroids versus Meteors from 1981. I'll give you a minute. Everyone have your answers locked in? Good. Round 2, here's Street Fighter, and here's Fighter's History. Infringing or no? Everyone write down the notes. Is that your final answer? Ready for the answers? Well, let's take a look at round 1. When Atari tried to sue Holniker Games, the maker of Meteors, the court made a list of 22 similarities between the games and 9 differences. They did the same thing in a case between Capcom and Data East over Street Fighter and Fighter's History. In both of these cases, you look at these 2 games and they look practically the same. Yes, Meteors is in color or whatever, but the mechanics of breaking up the rocks are all the same. You shoot it, it splits in 2, same point values, same objectives, etc. And in the Street Fighter clone, there are screens that look practically identical, with characters who are practically carbon copies of each other and movesets that are barely distinguishable. So clearly these games must have been able to protect their copyrights, right? Wrong! Both of these cases were thrown out because neither of the clones violated copyright. What? Turns out you can't protect those Street Fighter characters under copyright because they're based on archetype fighters from around the world. Forget the fact that both games star a dark-haired martial artist who has a spinning multi-hit kick. Capcom didn't invent the idea of a martial artist, so Ryu can't be copyrighted. And the movesets for all the characters? Well, those are just based on real-life fighting techniques. So again, not invented by Capcom, and as a result, not something that they can copyright. And for the moves that weren't real, like fireballs leaving hands, the color and look were different, so again, not copyright infringement. I kid you not. The court even acknowledged Fighter's History was a Street Fighter 2 clone released to ride off of its popularity, but yeah, that is totally fine. Same with Meteors. Atari didn't invent rocks in outer space, so you can't copyright the idea of shooting rocks in outer space. According to them, any game that's gonna have you shooting rocks in outer space is gonna look something like Asteroids. There's no way around it, apparently. I mean, I would propose things like changing the camera angle, but hey, I'm no expert. Who am I to judge? So as you can see, these court rulings make it really hard to protect your game. I think all of us would agree that Asteroids and Meteors are practically the same thing, but according to the courts, a company can't have a monopoly over a game idea. It boils down to the expression of the game elements, not the mechanics of the game. Forget the fact that the ship rotates the same way, accelerates the same way, and the space rocks break apart in the same way. One was in color, one was in black and white vector graphics, making them 2 completely different things. That said, AS2M and Pokémon Uranium would still both be struck down, using visuals, maps, and logos from the original games, not to mention the trademark infringement of the word Pokémon. But also under these criteria, most Undertale fan games could also be busted, as many use character designs and locations from the original game. Toby Fox is just a cool guy letting cool people use his cool characters. So is no fan game safe then? Well, for that we turn to FNAF, which falls into an interesting gray area. You see, unlike Undertale games that keep all the characters and locations, most Freddy fan games take the idea of haunted animatronics hunting you in a building and make it their own by creating new robots in a spin-off story. The mechanics may be the same, but the expression of those mechanics is different. Candy's is set in the aftermath of FNAF, alluding to some closed-down pizzeria and featuring the return of a familiar-looking puppet, similar, but not quite the same. Those Nights at Rachel's does the same thing, and both added new features, like leaning or turning on lights while in camera mode. code. The joy of creation takes it even further and makes the whole thing free roaming. Based on these court rulings, Freddy striking down these games would be like Mario striking down Sonic for being a platformer. FNAF created a genre of robot restaurant survival. Is it a very specific genre? Yeah, but just like the Asteroids case, if one wanted to make a haunted Chuck E. Cheese style game, you would need a restaurant setting with animal-themed robots. Scott Cawthon wouldn't have a monopoly over that idea. So long as the maps, characters, sound, and story were different, you would be in the clear. But before you think to yourself, yes, I can finally create that FNAF clone where I'm in a haunted Olive Garden and all the animatronics are shaped like buttery breadsticks, first of all, get out of my head. But secondly, you might want to slow that train down there, fella, because it looks like the times might be a-changin', and we as gamers might be the ones to blame. Let me introduce you to Triple Town versus Yeti Town, two of the literally hundreds of mobile tile matching games out there on the market today. These games are seriously a dime a dozen, and they all play exactly the same. So how are you possibly gonna single out one that infringes on the copyrights of another? Well, in 2012, a judge managed to do just that with these two games, which, when you look at them, look a lot less similar than something like Candy Crush versus Candy Sweet, or Candy Blast, or Candy Star, or Crafty Candy. Come on! Are you guys kidding? Mobile games, man. Jeez. Anyway, what made this case different was that they not only did an extrinsic analysis, they also did something the court called an intrinsic analysis, which was meant to look at the game as a whole through the eyes of an ordinary observer. And how do you do that? Play the games, maybe? Don't be silly, the judge in the case never actually played either game, even though he personally said, quote, "It is difficult to compare two video games by looking at a few screenshots and reading written descriptions of gameplay," end quote. Objection, Your Honor, these things are like 99 cents in the App Store. Oh, just kidding, Triple Town is actually free, but go ahead, pass a ruling that'll affect all of gaming's future without actually playing the game for yourself. That's totally cool, bro. The legal system is so not ready for the internet age. No, what the judge did was turn to the opinions of video game bloggers. That's right, they looked at what video game bloggers said about the total concept and feel of the games and based the decision in the case on the fact that bloggers called Yeti Town a copy of Triple Town, despite examining the codes of both games and finding no plagiarism. So yes, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, you heard that right. Game bloggers decided that case. Us! Because I know if I'm looking for sound legal opinions, I turn to the expert advice of KSI and Diamond Minecart. But even scarier than listening to this man for expertise on the law, think about the way that we talk about games. It's a Minecraft clone. It's a COD wannabe. It's Amnesia meets Outlast. Under this court ruling, those sorts of statements could be legally admissible judgments. And most importantly of all, it means for the first time ever in history, whole game genres could be claimed by one creator. Under the old rules, it was just the expression of mechanics that were protected. Superficial things like names and colors and sounds, but now the mechanics themselves are being claimed. In other words, copyright law is getting tighter around these things at a time when gaming culture is looser and more exploratory than it's ever been. I mean, in just last week's episode, I called 7 Days to Die the equivalent of Minecraft because you punch things to gather resources, craft axes, and defend yourself from zombies. Could this be struck down by this? They look nothing alike, and yet based on the mechanical similarities, it could be possible. Under this new regime, could Battlefield take down Call of Duty since both are boots on the ground first-person shooters emphasizing realism?
Ghost Guard Jack is down!
Well, both were boots on the ground first-person shooters emphasizing realism, but because Battlefield came first, it'd be the one to win. Could Mario have taken down all the 90s era platformers that tried to claim his throne? Well, if you're jumping across platforms and collecting coins where 100 means a new life, you kill enemies by jumping on them and each stage ends with some goal, Sonic the Hedgehog, then yeah, it could really have happened. And so then where does that leave our fan games? Well, Candy's and Rachel's are now solidly out because even though they're not using the same characters, maps, or sounds, we call them FNAF clones. And to the court, that's good enough. Even the additions to the game's mechanics, like leaning and camera lights, wouldn't help thanks to an old case around Pac-Man. Early on, Pac-Man's dot-eating game supremacy was threatened by a game called Casey Munchkin, a maze chase game featuring ghosts chasing a puck-like character while he eats dots. Despite having fewer dots, dots that moved, dead ends, a moving map, and other small tweaks, the court ruled that the two games were too similar and gave Pac-Man the win and sole ownership over the maze chase genre of gaming. That leaves Joy of Creation as our last game standing. The only fan game that be legally safe across all of our examples, since it does something different gameplay-wise, offering a free roaming experience. Just make sure that you're changing up those animatronic names. And this brings up one last fun twist that comes out of all of this. As we've seen in the teasers for Sister Location, your character seems to be moving between different locations, from vents to control panels to bunkers. As of last night, us theorists even discovered a hidden map that was released. So if Scott were to have the player running between those places in Sister Location, hiding from the roaming robots, Joy of Creation, the fan game, would be the original, and thus we would have come full circle. The fan game shutting down the original source of inspiration. Isn't the legal system fun? But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Speaking of FNAF, have you seen me playing FNAF in real life yet? Well, I haven't either, since I was playing Five Nights at Candy's in that clip for copyright reasons. Oh, the old bait and switch. Anyway, you can watch that episode as well as me getting beaten up by an ostrich on my series Game Lab, which, if you haven't checked it out yet, you absolutely should by clicking right here. It's on YouTube Red, which I know makes a lot of you guys upset, but hey, all the episodes are out right now, so you can get yourself a free trial, watch the show, and then just, you know, do what you want with your subscription before that free trial ends. I'm not gonna judge. Oh, you know what? Actually, before you cancel it, decide what you're gonna want to do with that subscription. You can also check out the FNAF-themed episode of Scare PewDiePie that I was in, where I get tackled by an animatronic dog. Real smooth, Matt. And legitimately, no joke, this is the first time ever I meet Felix. It's on camera with a bag over my head in a recreation of a haunted arcade. Seriously, strangest introduction ever. No wonder he never returns my calls. Plus, it's worth mentioning Game Lab was just nominated for 2 Streamy Awards, naming it one of the best nonfiction shows on the entire internet for the past year, which is pretty awesome. We're up against things like the Discovery Channel and National Geographic, which is a huge honor. It's also kind of funny considering that the whole thing was inspired by Mythbusters way back during episode 23 of this show.
If this show had any budget, I'd demonstrate the difference by hopping in a plane with an expert pilot, probably including some comedic routine where I was made sick by the G-forces created. Instead, you get some Mythbusters footage and a couple of still images.
Anyway, I just want you guys to check it out, since no matter what the haters may say, I did it for you. To give you guys the reality check series that you liked so much on the channel without each episode having to be a paid-for commercial by a bunch of sponsored video games. That's also why there were a bunch of 360 videos with each episode. It was all born out of the idea that, hey, you guys watching the channel are the reason why I'm able to do cool stuff like defuse a bomb with the Game Grumps or play soccer with real-life cars. And so I wanted to figure out a way that put you in the middle of the action alongside me. And the 360 videos were the best way to do that. I know it was confusing for a while there while we were uploading them onto the channel, so that explains it, hopefully. Anyway, this end card has gotten really long as I ramble, so click my face and give it a watch when you can. The videos aren't going anywhere, so they'll be there when you're ready to watch. And that's it for today, so next week, break out your pixel rulers, because we're looking at Mario's Jump. I'll see you then.